Hi everyone, how are you? I wasn't going to show my face this week because I am officially on holiday, but I cut my holiday short for a variety of reasons. These headaches, this one headache that just won't go away is now my primary focus to try and resolve. And first of all, I just want to say a huge thank you to all you gorgeous souls who have messaged me privately, texted me privately, called me, WhatsApped me, DM'd me to send me love and wish me well. I just wanted to say thank you. That love has been massively and greatly received. Thank you for that. So while I'm meant to be on holiday in Cornwall, as you can see, I'm in my office, and my only job was two jobs actually. One, to get to the doctors to have my blood tests, and the second thing was to read this book. Yes, it's back to front, but it's the book by Davina McCall and Dr. Naomi Potter, Menopausing. It's been on my shelf for a while, but as you can see, it has now been read cover to cover today, and I've got my pages turned over, and those little sticky notes are for the pages for James, so that you can understand what's been going on with me in the last month. And that's really what I do. When there's something wrong with me, or I'm going through a situation, or something has happened in my life, this is how I deal with it. This is how I've dealt with so much. And for those of you who've been with me for a really long time, this is how I dealt with leaving my career. This is how I dealt with losing my mum multiple times to Alzheimer's. This is how I have dealt with issues in my relationships, my marriage. So many of these books are the history of that, and so many of them downstairs by my bed, in the basement in boxes. This is how I've dealt with my diagnosis of clinical depression, of PTSD, of insomnia, of my multitude of eating disorders. This is how I deal with things. I read, I watch, I listen, I speak to experts. I've been so lucky to have many friends who are involved in this health space, in menopause, in depression, all these things. I speak to them. I want to get to grips with all of it. And I wrote in the back of the book some key things. I always ask myself, what are the key things that stood out for me from this book and from what I've learned in the last couple of days from my in-depth absorption. So do you want to know what came up for me? And when I asked myself what are the key takeaways, I thought I'd share them. Number one is that what I'm going through is so normal. And I feel really stupid saying that, because it actually happens to over 50% of the population, over 50% of the population of women. So why would I be ashamed? Why wouldn't I speak out of this? And actually I circled in the back something that Davina wrote in her book. And she said, no more shame, no more stigma, remember. And I wasn't going to talk about it, but having read that, of course I'm not going to stay quiet. So why be ashamed? Speak up, talk. And it's incredible, like with so many of the things that I've been through in my health journey, my life journey, the minute I speak up publicly, so many people come to me and say, me too. And thank you for sharing. And not only has that helped me because it makes me feel less alone, I know that it means that so many others don't feel alone too. Another stupid one. I cannot believe I'm so... Honestly, self-flagellation. Must not do that. The R in HRT stands for replacement. I mean, that sounds obvious, doesn't it? But it's replacing hormones that my body is no longer able to create on its own. So why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't you go in and help myself with something that I'm depleted in? And especially, why suffer some of these awful headaches? Why didn't I do it sooner? I'm going to beat myself up. I've taken action. One of my biggest takeaways from this is that, yes, HRT and getting support for the menopause and perimenopause is about helping you live and love your life now, which is what I'm all about, right? Living and loving your life right now. But it's also about long-term living and loving. HRT also helps with so many other things. HRT is actually really important for longevity. And this was so eye-opening, and why, after watching Davina's documentaries last night, I picked up the phone this morning at 8 o'clock, rang the doctor's surgery and went straight down, was that actually taking HRT can, well, first of all, help prevent risk of cardiovascular disease. Did you know that? More women have heart attacks than men, and often due to reduction in estrogen. I didn't know that. I knew about osteoporosis, but obviously brittle bones, breaking bones, all that kind of thing. But the big one for me that really, really got me was the Alzheimer's thing. The research showing that reduction in estrogen has an impact on your brain and can be linked to dementia and Alzheimer's. And obviously my mum had Alzheimer's, and it just makes me question, if she had started this earlier, could she have prevented getting Alzheimer's? Would she still be here today? We'll never know, but I want to make sure that I'm around for my boy. The next one I wrote down was talk about it more openly. And I didn't realise that so many of my friends had been through all of this. And talk about it, that's all I'm going to say. Just talk about it and be open with it. You don't have to do it on social media, but just talk about it with friends and family, and seek help when you need it, because it is there and people are so willing to give it when you ask for it. I've written down, I'm not normal. That's how it's felt for me. I haven't felt normal in any sense. And that was kind of like my biggest alarm bell. And just as it didn't feel normal to me, it's also so normal, which is kind of contradictory, but it's also not necessary to feel not normal. Does that make any kind of weird sense? Am I making any sense? Maybe not. Okay, the last thing I wrote down and underlined is that all of this is happening for me. And I know I gave myself this summer to kind of like work out what path I wanted to take, who I wanted to help with my personal brand. And the universe always offers, doesn't it? And it's given me this massive wake-up call, because I haven't always been feeling like this. It really was like a massive wake-up call about 3 weeks ago that this has been started to happen. And I just have to trust, like I did when I wrote in my diary, when everything went Pete Tong in my whole life, and I wrote in it's all happening for me, and I will look back and I'll know that this was the turning point. I'm almost feeling the same again. This is the turning point, and it's just really underlined everything that I wrote down last week in terms of where I want to take my brand and what I want to stand for. And it's brought me right back to really where and why I started my own business. Feeling like this is a glasses off moment. It's brought me right back to everything that I stand for and everything why I started this business. And it goes right back to those key things. It goes back to healing. It goes back to my love of learning, my love of growing, which is taking what I have learnt, using that wisdom and using it for me to grow, to expand, to share. And then also everything always leads back to love, doing everything that I love, which really is that whole happiness, and it's health, and it's being free to be me and all of me, mentally, physically, emotionally. And that's really where I'm going to be taking this brand going forward. The healing, the learning, the growing, the loving, the happiness, the health, and the being free. That's where it's at.